Hey, friends, family, foes, patriots, whoever you are out there listening, subscribers, listeners, all that. It's very important that you understand, please, that we have tried to record this a couple of times now, me and Mr. NPC 3.14. The first time, the sound was so bad it wasn't even usable, as he was not even audible because we tried a different microphone and headphone setup. And we went with the regular setup this time, but for some reason there becomes an echo with using Discord and the software that I use. So I will fix this problem by buying a good set of headphones in the future. However, I cannot fix it today with this particular audio. Please be kind. It's not intentional to have this echo. I wish I didn't have it. I wish I could fix it, but we already recorded once for 3.5 hours before this recording, and it was unusable 100%. So if you would please be kind, not leave messages about the echo bothering you. If you really can't listen to it because the echo is too much for you, then that's fine. Don't listen to it. But I would pray for you to please consider getting used to the echo and listening to this in full. It is so full of good information that NPC worked very hard to pull together for you guys. It's my fault there's an echo, so don't blame him. You can adapt. I believe in you. Peace and love of the Lord. Enjoy. Here we go.
Shiva and Kali are both known as the Destroyer. So it's basically predicated upon this belief that the same energy that can create can also destroy. So those of you that are concerned with global governance might want to also pay attention to the fact that there's a statue of Kali Shiva in front of the premises there at Geneva, where CERN is located. So, when we hear that quote about "I have become death, destroyer of worlds," that's basically alluding to some of the things we see in like the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna, the protagonist in this regard, is being counseled by Shiva, the god of war in this case, and so he's being, counseled and instructed about war and about the power and ebb and flow of power, etc. And when you really look into that kind of stuff, you start to see that, these folks today kind of see themselves in those same capacities, I guess you could say. Like they kind of have to reimagine themselves as these, I guess, tragic heroes in some cases. So I think it's worth looking into some of the parallels here. And that quote really came to mind only because, what was it? You mentioned something about Trump, right? Mentioning the Manhattan Project and comparing the pursuit of the COVID vaccine.
Operation Warp Speed. Yep.
Yes, indeed. So that means right meow, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So, when we talk about Manhattan Project, that's the guy that said that was the guy that created it. So when you really think about that, it's almost like an eerie, intuitive Donnie Darko kind of connection. It just doesn't sit well with you when they talk like that. It's either he just said it without thinking, or the universe just has ways of joking. I would like to go ahead and then talk about this global governance pursuit here. So you're going to find this under the World Economic Forum Strategic Alliance website. And so this widget was created not even necessarily during the midst of the outbreak. It was created as a prologue along with Event 201. So we can show you this. So as it loads, I'll discuss. So under global governance, you're going to see a lot of these various countries. And notice not all countries are here, but some of the ones that are heavy hitters. Turkey, NATO ally, always causing problems. Right now has diplomatically isolated themselves. Most recently, they were basically hoarding refugees and threatening Europe, who's also on this spoke over here, I think, somewhere. And so basically, because of the COVID thing, the refugee crisis got settled down a lot. And as you'll notice, we also have 5G, COVID-19. So in regards to today's talk, global governance, we're going to focus on like how these kind of work together, also with AI. So in Event 201, this is something that began October 2019, which that alone should kind of raise some concern, right? Because we never really started to see this outbreak that we're talking about now until about, when was it? January?
In the U.S., but we were seeing it in China back as far back as November.
Yeah, but the point is that nowhere was reporting it before October.
No, right.
So, so I think that whenever they did, it wasn't necessarily a drill. I think they were just doing it. And of course, it comes as no coincidence that the man behind none other than Bill Gates. And I haven't done the research into John Hopkins personally. If you have, perhaps you have some comments to make there of the connections. But from what I've been able to gather, there's, right here on the screen, it's Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, John Hopkins. So I think they partnered with them to do this Event 201 thing. And it just looks like one of those incidences where they went live with their drill, so to speak. Now, if we also look here, who is Bill Gates, we find that there's a little more information. For instance, one of the more recent to be the executor of the state. So, Epstein was into some strange things aside from the human trafficking. He was also dabbling in eugenics and basically siring their own race of people through genetic engineering. So, you got somebody that knows him pretty well now, also want to vaccinate people. So, anyway, this is the Corbett report. That's the. I recommend anybody go here to kind of look into some of this stuff from the past. Davos is World Economic Forum Summit, the G8, G10, that kind of stuff. They talk about policy and how to basically forecast what's going to happen, or forecast more like just discuss what they're going to do. And then it happens later usually. Which is basically what we're seeing with this Event 201, is that they host these events and then they happen. Just like with the Economist magazine. It's the same difference there. Let's see. So I'm going to show you the COVID action platform. This is an outgrowth of this portion here. If I were to click that, you can navigate to the, and so you're going to, my screen's a little zoomed out because there's so many different things attached, but basically it's anything from automotive to banking. In some cases they have countries like China, Australia, European Union, United States, geopolitics, Indonesia. So as you can see, it's varied. But basically this was, remember, an outgrowth of the global governance. And this is in various layers. Like every time you click one of these, it's a new one of these layers to the widget. And so, again, it's hard to appreciate just how vast this thing is until you spend some time just clicking, which just goes to show, they knew about all this well before October. wouldn't have been able to get all this information coordinated so easily. And then, of course, one of the other remedies, because of the global governance feature here, we're going to see that out of these kinds of policies that are happening at a multi-national level, like, for instance, laws, 80% of those are European Union. So the United States is kind of drifting into the territory where they're starting to adopt stuff like this now. Even though Trump himself has been largely resistant to things like the WHO, etc., he's always right. Still, yeah, this right here, even if he was totally against everything and only for this, that would be bad enough, because the piece of legislation right here, HR 6666, is the one regarding the COVID-19 testing, reaching, contacting everybody, the TRACE Act. And of course, this, you were talking about the CARES Act, and that preceded the stimulus checks, correct? And you said that that was actually passed in, what was it, January?
It was introduced in January of 2019, and while it wasn't called, it was I'm not sure if it was called the CARES Act yet or not, but it was kind of like what you would call like a placeholder. You could tell it was just some general health care stuff. It was passed easily. It was very, very generic, and then they were able to use it to reword and change. So it was already passed and or introduced. I don't know. I know that Gianforte tried to say it was passed, like he got it passed or something, but I think it was already passed as this generic healthcare bill, because they completely changed it to the to what it is today. And so to me, it was just a placeholder that they didn't have to worry about passing through later because it was already there. It's HR Bill, I think 748.
Coronavirus Aid, Relief, Security Act. So, yep, that's the CARES Act. This is the $2 trillion coronavirus stimulus bill. The bill was introduced on an unrelated matter, but on March 25th, 2020, the Senate replaced its text in whole with the stimulus bill. This bill would send $1,200 to each American, making $75,000 a year or less, add $600 per week to unemployment benefits for up to 4 months, give $100 billion to hospitals and health providers, and increases Medicare reimbursements for treating coronavirus. Give $750 million to food banks, to Puerto Rico, and to other territories for food assistance, and to programs for food distribution on American Indian reservation. Pay $500 billion of loans or investments to businesses, states, and municipalities, and $32 billion in grants to the airline industry. Relief for those federally backed mortgages, and a delay of student loan payments. Wow. So, indeed, that is quite a bit of relief, and prior to all the damage. So, in my opinion, that's a bit telltale also, because that would show their, if pardon the word, collusion. Whenever we look at something like this, and we see the global governance, and we see our country on there, and then we see legislation like this, and this popping up, we see that there is some, possible threads here to research, and like the members of Congress themselves, and maybe what their connections are. I haven't did the tracing of the leads myself yet, but that's something that we could probably use some help with. So anyway, I don't have to tell you guys that the legislation seems I don't know what word to use exactly, but it seems intentional, I think, is the word. And when you work with, if you research magic, these people work with magic, intent is what they use. And see, they have to tell us what they're doing to absolve themselves of debt. I think is how it works. So basically, I think this is like them telling us that, right? So this would be a good time to kind of mention also how I guess the vaccine, if you want to call it that, is just kind of being ushered in too. Because with this tracing app and these technologies, from what I've been able to gather, they are going to be able to basically ping and know if you've been around anybody that's been infected. And it goes back for up to like 12 days or something like that. So imagine a world now. Close your eyes and come with me. Imagine you're in a world. It's like the Matrix, right? So you're going to be in a world where if you go shopping, right, where you want to eat, you may very get a visit from one of these COVID, I don't even know what they're calling them.
Calling them contact tracers.
Is that what they're calling them? So, and I know folks that like work for the department, they're already getting up to like recruit volunteers to become testers.
They're already recruiting for jobs too. They're saying, "Oh, are you out of work? Come become a contact tracer."
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and that's what a lot of this grant money and stuff's paying for. Of course, money finna go there. So, you know, we see a lot of that, and with this bill, I mean, pretty much what they're doing. So,
in fact, there is a gal who did contact tracing training. She went to the training and then she exposed in a video about it. And I can put up images of this. You don't need to find it. I copied them and pasted them into the general chat somewhere, but not the general voice chat, but the general chat. But what she was showing was the paperwork was saying that it's voluntary, and we hope you'll comply with this voluntary app. And we're making it voluntary right now. And of course, in like India, it's not. You can't travel anywhere unless you download the app. So at that point, it's not voluntary because you can't go anywhere. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't even enter a grocery store without having the app on your phone because you have to scan the QR code or whatever. And so they're going to do this voluntary, quote unquote, voluntary app. And now she's in the state of California, but don't think they're not trying to try this all over the United States. But the app says, we hope that you'll comply to this voluntary app and, the isolation, the quarantine that they're requiring, depending on your connections with the sick or the possibly sick or whatever. Somebody ends up being a carrier or something, they'll want you to quarantine. It basically puts you in and out of quarantine and isolation constantly. But it says, the document says that if you choose not to comply voluntarily, they may have to bring law enforcement to force you to comply, which means it's not voluntary at all, and they're breaking HIPAA agreements by giving law enforcement your testing results and your address, and they're flagging those homes.
Well, so as you can see, it's not just me making this up and saying the sky is falling. I mean, this is quite literally what's already happening in China, where you have an app and you have a green status, right?
Right.
You bump into somebody that's got the yellow status or red status, pardon. Or yellow, I guess.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, now you have to be tested to get green, leave your tank, then they revoke your green status and you have to get it back when you return. So we're creating like this weird world where there's going to be checkpoints everywhere, and you're going to have to start showing your papers. Only it's not going to be papers; it's going to be a digital mark. So I mean, this is exactly what mark this is leading to. Or this is leading to mark these.
And not only that, you have to video record. So if they want you in isolation or quarantine, you're going to have to prove that you've done it for the allotted time that they want you to do it with video recording. You've done it properly. So like isolation means you might have to go stay at a hotel. They might come take your kids from you. They'll call social services and say, okay, well, she doesn't have anyone to watch her kids, so we'll take them. I mean, this is really going to become pretty awful pretty fast.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, folks don't even really understand how bad it already is, because there's a lot of these businesses that are not coming. They can't hire the staff. I mean, you've dealt irreparable blows to many different industries, and unless it's a franchise like mom and pop Main Street type establishments are just wiped out. I mean, it's really not fair now that you can go back. You have to like stick all this ridiculousness. So, I think people are starting to realize, like, when you start factoring in mental health and economic welfare and people's homes, etc., and jobs. And then, of course, the government wants to step in and be like, oh, well, we'll give you food stamps and so on and so forth, which if you then read about HR 666, part of this is that if you take a system, you have to then be tested and all this. And I must say, even though it says, again, like you were saying a moment ago, no provision in this bill would make testing or quarantine mandatory. It's like they want to say that, but then they make, they'll go into more details. But before I get off track, I wanted to mention this also. Now, this is a patent for what's known as an internal cryptocurrency, monitors your body activity and harvests that data. This is something that's basically like the nanobot size particles that could easily be fit into a syringe. So think like vaccines, not saying that quote unquote will be this, but it just seems awfully coincidental that at the same time that all of this is going on, Microsoft has for PC technology right here. And so, as you can read, this is actually based on Satoshi Nakamoto's cryptocurrency known as Bitcoin. And so, what people like most about Bitcoin is that it's decentralized, meaning that there's a shared ledger, and the math on it gets updated every moment or so, and everybody can check each other's math, and so nobody's allowed to rig the system, right? That's the beauty of it. And so it can never be traced. Nobody knows who anybody is. Well, if you read this sentence right here, that's what makes this particularly scary. So, in the second paragraph here, it says several cryptocurrencies exist. Among these, the most well-known is a blockchain-based cryptocurrency. Most blockchain-based cryptocurrencies are decentralized in the sense that it has no central point of control. However, blockchain-based cryptocurrency can also be implemented in a centralized system, having a central point of control over the cryptocurrency. Bitcoin is one of the examples of blockchain-based cryptocurrency. It is described in Satoshi Nakamoto's 2008 white paper named Bitcoin a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. So we can see that while a lot of folks were trying to raise the alarm saying, oh, Bitcoin's the mark beast or whatever, but I never personally really thought that it was, because it wasn't perfect. It wasn't controlled by the government. It seemed like this is where they were going to go with it all along. It was just going to rip off the technology and make their own. It's based on the government.
That's what they do. They hijack. They can't. They're not creative enough to do this stuff on their own.
That's what black magic, I think, essentially is. When I've read is that it's a perversion of just source, like whatever. There's only good, but they take it and use it for their own people purposes, which I guess is why they often convert things upside down. That's the way I understand it.
I compare it to the killer bee. Usually, I mean, you could do this with many things, but I think the best description is the killer bee, because if you look at what they wanted to do with the killer bee, it was supposed to produce more, be more efficient. It was a hybrid that they created in a lab. Well, instead of producing more and being more efficient, the killer bee produced less and hijacked beehives and killed them and didn't produce any honey.
Yeah, because it created like this mule hybrid that isn't even able to really be productive. That's basically what we're going to see with the more of the hybridizations that are yet to come, such as a new race that they entered Earth. So anyway, there's one more tab here. You can go and see how they kind of show how this is supposed to work. So basically, they put 145 is you, and then sensor, user device, into the cryptocurrency network, the cloud, and that's how these AI bots like Sophia, they operate their own cloud. They are essentially, part of their mind, I guess, would be blockchain. They're, I don't know if you want to label it, but some part of their brain, would be comprised of this blockchain. And so they can perform tasks for you, and it uses the term proof of work in this. And so you would basically be providing it with information, but also physical activity. So if you've seen the Black Mirror episode, think like the one where she's having to have to tread and feed the grid, right? And to get their cryptocurrency back or whatever. So it takes the absurd limits of them not even getting what they thought they were going to get, like being torturous hell, which is exactly what the whole thing's leading to. But anyway, they're not going to sell it like that at first. It's going to be, oh, cash is dirty, you can't have that anymore. This is one of those legacy systems we need to get rid of, and so here's one of those ways that we can do this. So,
and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because in fact, just recently, as of like March, the banks no longer have to hold any reserve of cash. In fact, they're required to hold 0% reserve of your cash, and so this is how, you can't go for cash anymore. They're just kind of depleting it in the system. So if we all went to the bank and we said, well, we want cash, they're going to go, sorry, we don't have it, nor do we have to have it, and it's all, it's going to become digital completely that way. So we'll be a cashless society very soon, especially since, for whatever reason, while all this is going on, why did the banks have time to get together during a pandemic at the central bank and decide that banks don't have to hold any cash anymore? They didn't say they did that because of the virus. It just is some part of their getting together and meeting and deciding what residuals they have to hold, and sorry, not residuals, what reserves they have to hold. And it used to be 10%, and in some cases less, even less than that, and now it's 0. They have to hold 0. So it's going to lead to, talk about a legacy system problem being taken care of. You won't need bankers anymore. You won't need armed security guards anymore. You won't need armed cars, armed trucks. None of these things will be necessary because there's nothing to guard. It's all digital. They're not going to break in and say, digitally insert money into my account, because then you're going to get busted, because they're going to see who you can't go in with a gun and tell them to force that money into your account, because now they can see that you did that, and they can see that you have all this money in your account that you didn't have, and they know somebody went into this bank and held them up, and that's when all the money appeared in your account. So you get caught too easily, and so they don't need them anymore. They don't need armed guards. They don't need any people at a bank, and you don't even need the building.
It's pretty incredible, isn't it? So oh yeah, one other thing I want to mention about this is that some of the language that's used when you are looking into cryptocurrency, they use the term contract a lot when talking about smart contracts and things like that. So you'll be making contracts on the blockchain with entities such as Sophia and AI question. So the reason that this is not absurd is because, again, if we go back to the wheel here, oh my, I just noticed that there's an anti-globalism spell. I didn't even notice that one.
Great.
We definitely need to look at that one.
Yeah, we do.
But anyway, okay, so probably on the financial and monetary system, that's probably we're going to see that banking stuff. But anyway, I guess let's go ahead and look at that. Big participation, corporate governance, future of economic progress, geoeconomics, geopolitics, workforce and employment, United States, and migration. Yeah, so migration, this COVID pass, and digital ID, stuff like that, the passport stuff. I can see where this is probably going. Okay, so that said, I'm going to hop over to the artificial intelligence website here, or the portion of the website on the whitehouse.gov in here. So this is the official government website. Accelerating America's Leadership in Artificial Intelligence, February 11th, 2019. So as you can see here, they want to take the lead. Of course, Google even declared quantum supremacy not long ago. Trump even tweeted about it. Leashing the AI resources. Remember that the presidential vehicle is known as the beast.
You mean his physical car that he drives in? Or rides in?
Yeah, but it was even that when it was Obama.
Oh.
So it's not just Trump. But it is known as that. And however, one interesting fact is that Trump is the first president, however, to take the beast for a spin on the track.
The Indy 500.
One of those races.
Or NASCAR.
I think he was in the car.
Oh, he was in the car, but he wasn't driving.
Yeah, that's what I meant to say. I don't know if he was actually driving. But anyway, again, if you go to the whitehouse.gov site, so the reason I wanted to peruse this a little bit for you all is to show that basically they are saying that this is AI for American innovation. They're wanting to use the investments in AI to help solve the workforce problems, which it's almost like they foresaw all these things happen.
Well, absolutely.
This was prior. Which is
this virus, this pandemic pushes all of their problems, quote unquote problems of the legacy systems out of the way. We had too many doctors and nurses. We had
exactly what this third thing says. Remove barriers to AI innovation. So advancing AI, invest in AI research and development, R&D, unleash AI resources, remove barriers to innovation, train an AI-ready workforce, and promote an international environment that is supportive of American AI innovation, responsible use. A lot of it.
So,
man, that's an executive report about it.
I really want to comment on that for a few minutes, if you will. One of the things, some of the legacy system problems are too many doctors, too many nurses. They want to have telemetry medicine where you have to see an AI through the internet. We have too many delivery drivers, too many drivers on the road, and they want to have driverless cars and robots delivering. That's why they want to get rid of the small businesses, because that's part of what's called the plan. And when you really look back to the plan, this is what's so funny is it's Q's plan really is Alice Bailey and Helena Blavatsky and Benjamin Grimm and David Spangler's plan. And who are these people? They're New Age pushers, and they're not just small names. These are big names. These are people that pushed huge movements, like Sierra Club and any United Nations. They're all the global New Age thank you for pulling that up. They're people that have a huge part in our governments, our world governments. And they even had a magazine called Lucius Trust. It used to be called Lucifer Trust. And Alice Bailey is one of the biggest in as far as being behind the scenes on these political movements, and Benjamin Grimm. And they call it the plan. And part of that plan is getting these small businesses at a minimum. And part of the plan is ushering in, their new world order, which comes as it looks like a peaceful freedom, to get rid of the old. And we talk about, you and I talk about this, you understand the legacy systems, I think, is the old guard that Q talks about wanting to eradicate, dismantle. And I believe that they do. I believe that there is a literal hatred towards Donald Trump and Q and on, because it is not their old guard and their old system. They're the Clintons, the Obamas, the Reagans, the Carter era people, and Bush, and it is being dismantled, but not for our own good. It's going to look the same to us. But I wanted to talk about real quick, they utilize things like the atomic bomb. They think that that's a helpful thing, and go back to talking about the black magic and everything, but that's part of what they do. They have their Black Lodge and their White Lodge, which is their black forces and their white forces, and Q talks about black hats and white hats. But interestingly, when Trump talked about this warp speed and comparing it to the Manhattan Project, and the Manhattan Project being the creation of the atomic bomb, Alice Bailey herself says the atomic bomb will be used. So when you mentioned that they need to remove any obstacles, so this is where I'm getting back to the point, that part on there where you said they need to remove the obstacles in the way of their innovation. Yeah. So she said back then when they were creating the atomic bomb, it was created to handle that opposition. And I'll read this real quickly. This is from Alice Bailey, and she talked about the nuclear-free world, but they're going to use it with the atomic bomb. She said the atomic bomb ended the resistance of the powers of evil because its potency is predominantly etheric. Its uses are twofold at this time. First, as the forerunner of that release of energy, which will change the mode of human living and inaugurate the new age wherein we shall not have civilizations and their emerging cultures, but a world culture and an emerging civilization, thus demonstrating the true synthesis, which is, they talk about the Hegelian dialectic is thesis, antithesis equals synthesis. So she says the true synthesis which underlies humanity, period. The atomic bomb emerged from a first-ray ashram, will to good, Shambhala force violence energies, working in conjunction with a fifth-ray group, which are scientists, scientific workers. From the long-range point of view, its intent was and is purely beneficent. And reason number 2, as a means in the hands of the United Nations to enforce the outer forms of peace and thus give time for teaching on peace and on the growth of goodwill to take effect. The atomic bomb does not belong to the three nations who perfected it and own its secrets, the United States, Great Britain, and Canada. It belongs to the United Nations for use, or let us rather hope simply for threatened use, when aggressive action on the part of any nation rears its ugly head, that is, opposition. When if anybody's opposing this integration of their new world order, it does not essentially matter whether that aggression is the gesture of any particular nation or group of nations, or whether it is generated by political groups of any powerful religious organization. So what they're saying is it doesn't matter who it is, they'll use it against it if it's going against their plan. And it says it leads human beings closer to the God of love, always talking about love and light. So I will mention one more time, it looks the same to you and me, but they are fighting each other, but it's going to be the same outcome for us, I believe.
Well, and I wanted to point something out. You mentioned the new race, and that's why I wanted to talk about the new Galilee, otherwise known as the sixth epoch. And they talk about the sixth and seventh root races. So you hear about this term, the Aryan, right? And so if we go back to this one here, this particular symbol here at the top, that's not necessarily associated with the Nazis. They stole that from the Eastern Attic traditions and such. It's actually a sun cross. And so they inverted it and flipped it, just like Satanists do. And so instead of giving energy, it's taking energy, right? And so the thing they created was this vacuous black hole, which they actually were known as worshiping the black sun. So that's I guess, a parallel I've never drawn before. But anyhow, I just wanted to make a mention of that leading to this also. So they're even talking about how this ties into things like the reptilian, which you can find mentions of that relating to Atlantis, Lemuria, etc. Blavatsky herself talks about all these different various races, how which I'm assuming are just all the different angelic creations, because these people also basically believe that each of these root races actually opened up one of the seals that it talks about in Revelation. So I guess it kind of makes sense to me, because the reason for divine intervention, as we read, is that for the sake of the elect, divine intervention, because lest there not be any flesh, right? And so when you really break down the word influenza, Germanic Italian for giant, and so what we are seeing is we call it influenza. We kind of minimize it just by calling it that. When in fact, it is quite literally like the blood of a giant assaulting the seed. It's like this age-old battle that's been for ages. So I myself find just very much intrigued by that whole thing. I mean, we let our language really shape our reality and perceive sometimes, but I really take the 10,000 perspective look at this. It's like, wow, ends up assaulting. And so we break it down further. What is corona? That's spamming crap. And so we have crowns upon our top of our head, right? Trees also have crowns on their tops as well. So when we talk about Revelation, it's talking about the mark and things like that. It says, when those creatures emerge from the pit, for instance, it says, do not harm the grass or the trees or those with the mark of the living God, right? So those with the mark of the beast are going to get assaulted with these creatures. So I don't know if they're going to be robots or some other thing. But that's one thing I really wanted to point out is that we're talking about really interesting topics now that are really out there, because it makes it very clear in Revelation. It says this will be a one-time event. I think in most cases time is very cyclical. Even in the Bible, there's prototypes and cycles. Teaches us in that way. But it makes it very clear that this is a one-time event. So we don't really have anything compared to this except for things like we see in Daniel when it's talking about the tower. The head of gold, the shoulders of silver, the belly of bronze, the legs of iron, and the feet of clay and iron that mix. And it actually mentions in that same verse about how the seed will. And so there is this connection to the blood itself and the kingdoms that rule, which you covered extensively, all the bloodlines, talked about how they war with one another. I mean, imagine, if you would, all the Nephilim that were on Earth physically at one time, right? There was a reason that God flooded the earth to begin with, and that was because of the fact that they were not born of woman. They refused to give up their bodies, and so they were here and mating with women. They were breaking the divine laws, right? So God killed them. And so when we read in Ephesians and other topics like in Daniel, when the prince of Persia was preventing Daniel's angel from coming to interpret a dream in Ephesians, where it talks about wrestling not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and wickedness in high places. We are very much aware of the fact that these entities, though they did rule physically on this plane at one time, they still have their rulerships, kingdoms in the spirit realm here on Earth. And so I think that's one thing that we really need to remember is that the power in Christ allows us to cast things out, like he did when Mark talks about him visiting the Nicodeans and casting out into the swine and then running off the cliffs into the ocean. And talks about that also in Mark, and I think in Matthew it says likens faith and mustard seed, and it can move mountains. And it says, if you believe it and you say it, it shall be so. And it's talking about speaking the word of God to the mountains, which is actually nations. And so the nations being governed by these principalities, these demonic entities, and their legion. And they're all like, it's easy to understand like how this is actually happening, because they are warring with one another. But they're waiting on who they call Daddy. And it's going to show up. See, my personal opinion is that when he shows up, that's what we're going to see is we see the 10 ruling. He's going to show up and kick 3 of them out, right? The little horn is going to show up and remove 3 of the 10. That'll be 7 plus 1, which is 8. And that's Christ. So it makes sense to counter Christ. That's just my personal opinion. And hands out.
Okay, can I add?
Sure, go ahead.
What I wanted to add to what you were saying is, and it was what we were saying throughout, so it wasn't just what you were saying, but when you were talking about cycles, in this book, A Treatise on White Magic by Alice Bailey, it's a very long book, it's got hundreds of pages, this is just a small excerpt, but I want to read it. And she talks about the black and white forces, but she also talks about the cycles, like you said. So it's just one paragraph, and I'm going to read this. And it's from A Treatise on White Magic by Alice Bailey. So, quote, "You might well say here, we have also been taught that there exist those who work in the 4 ethers and who undoubtedly perform magical deeds, yet who do not possess this essential purity and loving kindness to which reference has been made." Now, just to interrupt, this is why I say the old guard hates Trump. Yes, there is this hatred of the, the Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and all the media, that this is exactly why they hate him. So let me go on, because they think they're different. They think that they're loving kindness compared to the Black Lodge. So this is undoubtedly true. They belong to a group of workers in matter whom we call black magicians. So I would say it's Satanists versus Luciferians myself. Okay, back to what she says. They are highly developed intellectually and can motivate mental substance or mind stuff in such a manner that it can achieve objectivity on the physical plane and bring about their deep intent. About this group there is much misunderstanding and profound ignorance. It is perhaps as well, for their destiny is tied up with the future race, the 6th, and their end and the cessation of their activities will come in that far distant eon which is technically called the 6th round. The final break or division between the so-called black and white forces for this particular world cycle will take place during the period of the 6th root race in the present round. Towards the close of the 6th root race, before the emergence of the 7th, we shall see the true Armageddon about which so much has been taught. A small cycle corresponding to this final battle and cleavage will appear during the 6th subrace, which is now in process of formation. The world war which has just taken place and our present cycle of separativeness and upheaval do not constitute the true Armageddon. The war which is told to us in the Mahabharata and the present war had the roots of their trouble and the seeds of the disasters which they brought about, one in the lower and one in the higher astral world. So it's like they're trying to bring in their own Armageddon and their own revelation. In my opinion, they've tried in the past, and she's saying, nope, that hasn't happened yet. And she's also talking about the separation of the black forces and the white forces, like the black hats and the white hats that I think Q talks about. And then she also talks about the cycles in the 6th root race and coming into the 7th new human, they call it Homo noeticus. Anyway, that's stuff you were mentioning on the New Galilee. And I want you people to know that we're seeing this happen politically, even with Donald Trump and Q, written by people of the likes of Alice Bailey, who, if you scroll to the top of your link right there, they clump her in with Aleister Crowley. Right there in that first paragraph. Yep. Helena, whoever Helena Roerich is, Aleister Crowley, Alice Bailey, all those names, clumped in together. Benjamin Krim.
And by the way, I want to point something out. It's actually very unfortunate he's associated with this bunch because he himself is such a odd duck. But yeah, the mere fact that they associated with him is because you would think that he himself would be more associated with the Black Lodge. But either way, it just shows that he infiltrated many places as he could because he just craved power. knowledge. And if you look at this little A symbol right here, where it's Aeon of Horus, you see that?
Yes.
That is part of Elon Musk's child.
I was just thinking that. Yeah, that's right.
You know what that means?
Ash or something. I can't remember.
Yes, ash tree. So if you research the Bible and you find, like I was mentioning earlier, that's why I kind of talk about trees, because when you really look into it, a lot of times people are trees, nations are mountains, so on and so forth. So if you look at the prime root word, no pun intended, for tree, it is also the word for backbone, spine. So what we see there is that it's referring to the fat of the land, or there were many trees planted. And so when God refers to his people, or like his 144,000, or however, his orchard of righteousness, or trees of righteousness, that's what it is. I don't know the exact place it's found, but I heard share that. Because that kind of comes into this. So if we go to like Kings, I think, also find it where the trees are talking to the thorn bush, and they're all begging for a king, right? And so the thorn bush just says, yeah, sure, I'll be your king, but only if you can fit, don't leave my shadow, right? But the thorn bush doesn't cast a shadow, right? And so it was just kind of showing like how the trees of the day, let's just call them 12 tribes, right? Because in the end, there's the tree of life, bears all the manner of fruit, right? So let's just call them the tribes for right. And so not all of them were fruitful. Several of them were cut. And this is why we also see in Isaiah 11, where it talks about the root of Jesse, that from that stump that was they maybe if this is one of those interesting prophecies that it's like it may or may not even happen, right? It makes you wonder how many of those are in the Bible. But if there will be a remnant gathered, right? So it's like the first fruit, and some people equate this to the rapture, which I got a video on that you can show at this point. If you want, and it talks about Shavuot and the signs in the sky, and that gentleman will talk about the I have that right here with you. Right here. So it's when Hesperus, the evening star, becomes the morning star. So this is going to happen right now. Pretty much in the next week. So if you research this, they're using two different languages right here, using Greek and such. And so whenever Hesperus becomes phosphor, it'll become the evening star, will become the morning star. There's a verse, I think it's in John, they'll talk about, actually, hold on, it's right here. My phone's ringing, sorry. Okay, so he talks about Venus being the Pleiadians, and that was another thing I wanted to mention real quick, is that I found this. Sorry, I haven't went in great depth on these little various tidbits. I just wanted to mention that are kind of. So there's also this.
And I want to mention, I think it, just real quick, it's worthy of mentioning that Pleiades is also called the Seven Sisters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. In fact, they're named as the daughters of Atlas. So a few things to mention about Atlas that are very interesting. So the seven daughters were known as the Muses, and so they each govern different instruments, different arts, cetera, et cetera.
And
what's also very interesting about that is that the sign he's talking about with Venus changing, well, we happen to also be in the midst of an 8-year cycle where Venus will travel through the Pleiades. That happens every 8 years, and so the first week of April is Passover, right? And so during Passover, Venus was traveling through the Pleiades, right? But here's NASA's supercomputer named that. By the way, I just found this a few days ago, and as you can see, it's got all the specs here. It's pretty interesting. Looks like it's a node network. So I'm not really sure what they're doing with it, to be honest. But I ran across this and thought it'd be worth sharing. Now, another thing about his daughter. So Atlas is the name of the C1 vertebra right below your skull. Okay. So that's very significant because Golgotha means place of the skull, and that's where Jesus was crucified as well. So whether they intend for it to be significant or not seems significant because Atlas happens to also be the name of the comet that was going through the same time that this Venus was passing through the Pleiades during Passover. Was also the Atlas named C9 comet that actually disintegrated, and it was visible during the day and it disintegrated, and then Comet Swan came through, and that's actually during sickness, by the way. So I've been seeing a lot of these comets show up. There's actually another one called Wise, and it's also a way it's been increasing the brightness. So I would imagine the Pleiades supercomputer might. I don't know. It might. I really don't know what it's doing. But there's a lot of stuff going on logically, astronomically. It's worth looking into right now. So again, that's to recap: 8-year cycle of Venus passing through the Pleiades. Then we also have Revelation 12:1. That was 9/23/2017. And then this guy's saying that Shavuot is the holiday where then Venus is going to be between the bullhorns, and so he'll show you in this video right here that these are like the two tribes of the 12. Ephraim and Manasseh. He compares these horns to them. So understanding where he goes with that exactly, because I'm not well versed in that particular stuff he's talking. He goes into a little more depth here. About Peter, not John, pardon me. Where he's talking about the place where the day star becomes the evening star becomes the day star in your heart. He's saying that because this sign may not be visible, because even though it's happening, because you may not actually see it because of the fact it's like in the morning time. These people did pay attention to stars, and so they knew. But he's saying otherwise, he can't see why he would put that in here. Which Venus is associated with the heart too, as love. So it's kind of interesting they would say that, even though it's got those pagan elements to it. So I would really just recommend. This guy's not a pagan dude. He's actually even made up his own Enochian calendar. He's a devout Adherent follower. But he covers some interesting. It even says in Genesis that the stars and things are there for times again. So I would encourage folks to look at these things. It's very much worth your time. I just didn't have the study of it for the video. And so covered that. I just wanted to mention something else real quick. Oh yeah. Here we go. So MIT
this is a
really good place to mention Epstein, because he had his connections to MIT, and like how did he ever get a job there in the first place, right? So one thing you'll find when researching MIT, if you look at their connection to how the internet first began, because the internet was actually created as a information infrastructure between universities and military institutions, things like that. So like where CERN is essentially was kind of where it was birthed, if you will, even if now take credit, it really wasn't him, I think. So anyway, one of the early projects was for them to aggregate data based on D, right? And so the folks that were using their algorithms and their computers and the processing power, just like they're doing with the 80 supercomputers set, running nodes where everybody's like contributing their processing power, right? So MIT was doing this back in the day when they were experimenting with essentially cloud computing, but when the internet was first just starting. And so what they found was a correlation with vaccines and vaccine industry. But when they shared this information with the government, they just put a lid on it and just pulled the plug on the grant funding. It's just thanks. We know this works. Awesome. But then like these folks here were left with the knowledge that hey, we're hurting people with these vaccines, right? But that didn't fit the narrative in the big business model and what we see now being played on. So the reason I mention this is because this is the great segue for the parable of the cow and the cicada. Within that, I hear a very interesting clue about the tenets of cicada and how they also became a QAnon thing later. But you're going to see how the fundamentals of their vaccine. And you'll find that in the conversations between the Catholics. So I would urge anybody that's listening to this to pay very close attention to the parable. It's a clue that I can provide to you if you'd like an entire song, but it appears on Deep Step and 3 minutes and 31 seconds. If you want it, give it to you in a different server. Anyway, play that, and then that leads into this. So one of the things that data advocates, and even the name QAnon, of course, denotes that even in less advanced and less evolved form, QAnon is still anonymity-based, right? So you see that this is the kind of stuff they were really trying to warn us about. MIT here, even doing a story again about storing medical information that was in the surface. They knew ahead of time that this stuff was coming. This was back in December of 2019. By the way, the reason I went back to the I forgot to show that this right here on 6/20/2019, so last summer, they got filed, but it didn't actually get published until March, late March, actually, well after the virus was, full swing and all that jack. So again, no coincidence that this finally goes public.
In the middle of a pandemic, they have time to do these things, just like they did with the bill, and it was already passed. The HR 748 was already passed, and just like they, had suddenly written up 6666. I mean, all these things I believe were pre-written. They were ready to go for when this happened. And again, it solves
part of this careful planning.
Right. It solves the legacy system problem immediately.
An article here by the last American vagabond. the information on what's going on. He works along with Whitney Webb, who wrote the story about legacy systems and all this stuff that I was hearing about.
Yes, she did.
She's quite an incredible journalist.
Yes, she is.
So I would encourage anybody to follow her. But anyway, if you go through here, you can find a lot of other things that they kind of talk about, and they'll give you name and more details to follow up on. So please go by and check this out. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that too before we went on, because basically I wouldn't have found that WhiteHouse.gov executive order on AI than for Ryan and Whitney's work on Vagabond. I just wanted to mention.
Yes, she is also where I got some of my information for the video I did on Q and Trump and the AI legacy. Not all of it, but definitely the legacy system stuff, and it clicked to me that sounds like the old guard and the old dismantling of the old system. And anyway, I give her all the credit for that section of it, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have had that understanding. And she also talks about how the hold on, let me get this out so I can say it correctly. Okay, hold on. Just a second. She also talks about the National Security Commission on AI that is chaired by Eric Schmidt, the former head of Alphabet, aka like Google and all that. And then Richard Fontaine, who I think was National Security Advisor to McCain. They got the CEOs of Intel, Microsoft, Google, Oracle, and military and intelligence community, all in this National Security Commission on AI. And this administration was created under Trump, okay, and then he's got the AI policy, and this committee will set and is setting the recommendations for how America comes out of this coronavirus situation. And it's, like I said, it's getting rid of all of the legacy problems overnight. Yeah, what is it?
Legacy problems like trust in AI. That's probably considered a legacy.
Right, we got to get rid of that.
Remove barriers to AI innovation, such as foster trust and applications of AI. Yeah. Sorry, get a little concerned with that. I mean, also with these, the language they're using, it's like, they really want to make unleash AI as like a common motif throughout this document. It's like they literally want to make it sound like a living thing, like a beast of some sort. Like they're trying to intimidate with this, I'm sorry.
No, I agree, and
is it apparent to you?
Yes, the fact, and also it really points out that Q is not our friend, because Q is allegedly a military operation. Well, so is the National Security Commission on AI. It's a military operation, and so is Operation Warp Speed. That's compared to the Manhattan Project, a military operation. And if Q is a military intelligence operation, and the National Security Commission on AI is a military intelligence operation, and we've got Operation Warp Speed as a military intelligence operation, and that's for 350 million vaccines to be ready by 2021, and being compared to the Manhattan Project, it's all pointing to the same thing. It's not for us on our benefit, it's for what they want to usher in the new world order. It is still a new world order.
Dude, look at this one.
Yeah.
Build trust in the use of AI.
And you know what's weird is people who in the beginning who were following Q were mad if we thought that Q was an AI. They're like, AI is bad, AI is bad, AI is bad. But Q continues to push this love and light and military operation, and all this other stuff is going on by the military, and now they're suddenly okay with it. They're suddenly okay with martial law. They're okay with secret and private military tribunals on American citizens in military prisons. They're suddenly okay with all these loss of our rights because they're saving the children. I mean, it's really sad how easy it's become to get a massive amount of people to trust in something that is just ushering them into to their own loss. In fact, Alice Bailey says it great in this book. Hold on.
Can you repeat that?
Which part? I don't know. Oh, I dropped my mic. In fact,
Oh,
I was going to read this part if I can find it. Shoot. Give me a second to look. Okay, so here's where it talks about, and this is from the book The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow by Constance Cumby, who had done much research into New Age specifically and what they're doing. And the sad part is that what she says here is that millions have been deceived into supporting projects designed to eventually strip even themselves of their civil liberties, much of their property, their preferred religion, and perhaps even their lives. So while many people think that they're doing a good thing or they're part of a good thing, like Q, what they're actually doing is walking themselves right into the loss of their liberties, their property, even their religion, and possibly they'll die from if it goes by the way of the Georgia Guidestones.
Yeah, I mean the kind of the time when everybody's looking for that, you know what I mean? So I've always kind of thought that in a way they were trying to replace the Holy Spirit, right? Because in a way, like the Holy Spirit is like a form of artificial. I don't want to call it an artificial intelligence, but I mean like if compare apples to apples here, if you will. Then it's like the spiritual form of an AI, and I think they're trying to count. See what I mean? So by trust the government. We got AI. It's solving all of our problems, right? And so it seems to me like the perfect situation would be, your world leader coming along saying, "Hey, this AI is pretty swell. What you think? We're gonna do this digital currency thing. It's gonna handle this. It's gonna be great." A lot of talk like that might come along with this type of idea.
Well, just like,
I mean, we already have martial law in the first term, so
right, when you compare the Holy Spirit, it's the same Trinity, but opposite. The beast is like the Holy Spirit, but for Satan. So there's Satan, the Antichrist, and the beast. We have the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. So yeah, it is comparable. It is comparable, the Holy Spirit, to the beast.
I just learned today when I was studying some of the words. The word mark actually denotes that, and it says that the Holy Spirit is the mark of God. So like if you do believe in Christ and you are in the blood of the Lamb, then you have that mark on you that was also again like the cycles that occurred. We see that in the cycles, the Passover. Lamb. Put the lamb's blood above your door. But that was prior to Jesus. So you see there that's repeated over and over. Right? And so Jesus was also slain in this time, being Joel. The last sacrifice. That means that if you're covered in his blood, the angel of death will pass over you. And that's what makes this so interesting right now. The time we're in, when we're seeing the signs in the sky, did occur. That was during Passover. Also we're coming up on, this is 2.5 years into the 3.5 years since the Revelation 12 sign. So if you calculate 3.5 years from September 23rd, 2017, it puts you in March 2021. And so I calculated that date a little while back. And right before the virus started, I thought, that's pretty good guess, right? And then all this started, and I was like, oh, I'm not a year off, and then I thought, on year they want to be, right? And so I can see where they've really been laying down the groundwork. when they had this system coming along that takes care of the money part. You can't do anything unless you get your pass, right? So we can kind of get into this stuff now a little bit, and we're going to use the AI for is stuff like this. So if you recall, right before everything went sideways when they're doing Event 201, the same guy doing Event 201 also is in the headlines. Look at the story's called. It's finally over. Hey, isn't that so? The Jedi contract is for facial recognition. So it should be noted that even with a mask on, the facial recognition software is still determining you effortlessly in the high 90 percentile because we feed these stupid things picture after picture on our social media, right? And so I got a high rate of probability to figure out who you are, even with covering your face. However, wearing sunglasses does give it a little bit of so I just want folks to start thinking about they can to augment their clothing. To maybe do things harder for this stuff to identify them if that's a concern of theirs. You might be able to wear ball caps with LED lights and something. So if anybody has ideas, like for women, is there certain cool things like makeup or ball caps? Any ideas? People should include those ideas in the Discord. Share. For the world to come. And then so this is no joke. IBM is actually the precursor company to Windows. So if you do a little bit of digging on who Bill Gates, you'll find that nobody really doesn't know diddly about computers. He actually just bought the software from IBM for $50,000 and capitalized upon it and monopolized upon it, and then that's where we're at today. And if it weren't for his collusion with IBM at that time, we wouldn't be where we are today. And also another thing I ran across was Jeff Bezos. That is not his original name. You can do some research and find that he actually changed his name, just like Trump did. So I don't know what their reasons for doing these things are, but it could have something satanic. I don't know. Maybe there's mock trio on their name. I really don't know. But those two people right there have changed their name. I don't know about Bill Gates. I started calling him Bill Gates. Anyway. It's something that people should look into. Care about what's happening right now.
Yeah.
It won't be long before this is a huge problem.
Yeah.
Because this is connected to the social credit score system. So
And law enforcement can use it. It's called recognition with a K. So recognition with a K is what they've called this, and they are allowing law enforcement to utilize it as well for facial recognition purposes.
Well, I'm going to talk about something else here in a minute that'll tie to that. This is what they're calling a Covey pass. So right now, this is a bracelet, like a Fitbit, and this is how it's starting out, I think. Once they get rid of cash, it's probably going to start becoming digital. Oh, you don't want to bracelet all the time, do you? Well, you can just put this chip under your skin, then you can shower, you can run your hands through your hair, none of those problems ever. So, they come out with the V-code powered Covey pass, right? Which this is actually already used for convicts. So basically, you shouldn't have one of these on unless you are a convict. So they're taking an existing technology they already use and they're retooling it for digital authenticity of your vaccination records, all that jazz. So you can see where this is headed. So they come out with the thing that everybody would probably be okay with. You already wear a Fitbit, right? You wear a wristwatch, and then eventually here comes the chip. So all these technologies already exist, and what we're seeing now is the convergence. I think this is just the easy to swallow thing right now. This COVID pass, and I think what we're going to see though is that this is going to slowly turn into the chip. Because then you were talking about that story with Benjamin Netanyahu making the comment of chipping the children in Israel,
Yes,
so they can return to school. So again, they're going to start with the kid to be sensitized to them. I don't think the chip's going to be what. I mean, obviously, at some point there's going to be adults facing the decision, but I think people they're really targeting right now are the children because if you've ever seen the movie Equilibrium, for instance, they're going to have the kids reporting their parents, quarantining, all this crazy crap's going to be going on. I mean, just think about it. It's going to be hard for people to even wrap their head around what this is going to be headed. This is not going to go away. They finally have gotten to where they wanted it to be. All these legacy systems, like you're saying. This is just the bridge for that. And in this COVID pass, we need to get a little bit of research going here.
Oh, look at the hexagon on the eye. Nope. Oh, there's another hexagon again.
This deeper dive of using the COVID pass digital health passport.
Did you hear me about the hexagon symbol?
Yeah, right here. It's right above the eye.
Yeah, and then it was bigger on another thing. But I mean, just another showing their true. You don't have to go click on it again. Just another showing their allegiance, though.
Saturn is the planet where the hexagon is the eye of the. There's an eye and
yeah.
When a hexagon.
Saturn worshippers.
That's kind of interesting. So you can do it on the mobile phone, PFOB, or home printout. So I saw a lady where she lived in Saudi Arabia or United States or something. She had to get a digital pass on her phone. Approved by the local police. They told her when she could leave. If she was caught without it or out curfew, she had to get back by a certain time too. Or she could be fined like up to $600. I mean, if you think about if this is all going to be like tied to a cashless system, I mean, they can just find you. Boom.
Yep.
This COVID pass can be detected many feet away because these are more or less based on RFID. So essentially, if you opt into this, not you're basically opening yourself up to where they could just say, oh, hey, you've been exposed, corralled and quarantined. Like you said, they take away your kids or whatever. It's just going to lead. So if anybody's ever thought, this is what annoys me. I'm not going to start saying some people ardently argue, no, this is not the time. This is not the end days. Well, think about that. It says, love shall wax cold, right? I'm struggling with understanding how could that possibly be? Before this happened, I thought, man, what's happened? Once this happened, I realized then this is what that meant. People won't want to even talk to their family, right? People don't want to talk to friends. How many new relationships are going to start? How many new children are going to be? See what I mean? This is the end of. And I hate to seem so dramatic, but people really need to realize this could be the last. There's a lot of last. And you may not even realize that it's the last time when you're doing it. So I just want to encourage folks that we are alive and watching something happen right now. As it may not care
that humans
created it.
It's
It's just going to be inhabited by a demon, perhaps. So,
I was watching
some videos like Joe Rogan.
I think it was even
It was even last night. He had his friend Duncan Trussell. We were talking about the
emergence
of AI, and this was back in 2015. He said that this is going to have the same effect that the atomic bomb had.
Again with the atomic bomb.
And it's funny,
because even though we had already talked about using that example, he himself made that same comparison, even did the same quote.
And
that was really quite remarkable because that quote, even though it was used so long ago,
we see it
still so applicable now. And so think back.
When it
was around the first of the year, I think the week of Halloween, we saw from the Navy
the story
on and that this inclusive pluralism, plurality, because you can't offend anybody, God forbid, these days.
Of course, we got
make efforts to inclusiveness and allow them
up space
to worship, right? So that is becoming very popular. If you look at the naval industry, you'll find people like Michael Keenan and
the CIA,
lots of
Very satanic.
Tor, like the hidden internet, deep web, all that stuff. Those, which then we get into naval
laws of the land,
whether
our dead person,
because birth certificate. You talked about that stuff before.
Right, we're not actually people because of the birth certificate makes us a character, and it's our characters that they sell bonds off of, and especially if you're a prisoner, they sell bonds off of you as a prisoner. So we're just property in the birth certificate. In fact, we give up ourselves when we go and let them make a copy of our birth certificate. Just like when you buy a car, you own it until you take it to be registered, and then you're actually signing off your car to the state, and you're saying I'm just the holder of the car now. And so while you have to get your car registered and plated to drive, that's actually the point. You give it up as your own property. You don't own it anymore.
Well, so you don't
Sorry, you were breaking up. What did you say?
So essentially
they're saying that they own your.
Yeah, you don't. Once you make a copy. Yeah, once you go in and make a copy of your birth certificate or your kid's birth certificate, and you let them copy it, that's when they kind of. And I don't have all the details, but I can link anyone to the video where I learned this stuff. But that's where you actually have now given up who you are as a person, and now you have a character that they sell bonds off of. And the car, you relinquish ownership of it when you register it.
Okay.
Well.
What?
And don't forget, they also
put your
blood on it, right?
Your blood type, you mean?
Don't
they prick the baby's foot and stamp the thing with blood at some point during the birthing process?
Oh.
Don't they still do that?
I don't know.
Yeah, pretty sure
that's done.
Creepy.
Puts your blood on.
Yeah.
So
it's like a
Blood. It's a ritual. Yeah, it's a ritual contract.
So anyway,
I didn't want to diverge there. I just wanted to make a point that stuff is connected to this, because imagine now what's happening. This is a one world government thing, right? Corporation-wise.
Think about
how that's structured, right? And so then relate that to sovereign citizens, right? Renouncing citizenship and stuff like that. That's where that kind of thing might actually really come into its own here, because you're going to see a lot of Christians probably doing stuff like that, where they're like, you know what?
You can screw
your driver's license. You can screw your credit card. citizenship. My kingdom is none of this earth, right? So you know what? I don't want it. You can't. But there's and a lot of folks might resist that, especially in the United States, because we really cherish. But there's going to come a point when that's not going to mean anything, because that's also going to mean beast system, you know, and we're quickly approaching time, I think. So again, remember the statue, gold head, silver arms, bronze bells, silver legs representing the Roman Empire, East and West, 10 toes representing the Kingdom of Ten, right? Like I was telling you earlier, I think the little horn will place 3 of those 10. Even if it doesn't, there's still 10 regions for the New World Order kind of thing. And they each have a king, so right? In this case, there's kings of hell. If you research that topic, you'll find that there is actually different demons associated with that title. And so if you think about who are in these things, they have an hour with the beast, right? So if you look into this, they're all warlocks, sorcerers, right? Summoning magic is actually predicated upon power when such and such is in this certain range in the sky, because they're always channeling to the stars, right? Why do you think we call the celebrities stars, right? Because they want to incarnate the star energy, right, into us. Which, when you think about what there's some mysteries about God. I mean. We don't know what all creatures he's created elsewhere. Angels and stuff, mixed creatures mixed all together. I mean, there's some wild just even mentioned in the Bible. But think about what we don't know about. So we don't know. Like, there could very well be these angels could very well be stars. He's like spreading them out. Who knows? I don't know. It's flat. Whatever you want to think. Fact is, that's what these people do. Right? Is that they can incarnate from these stars. So if you go back to the old kings, they would have bed chambers with cracks wall, right? And a certain time of year, only certain stars would be sending their light that crack. Okay? So the king's bed chamber. When they were conceiving those children, they were trying to trap angels for lack of better word. Let's just say they're trying to trap angels. And this.
I think that's what quantum computers are trying to do. But keep going.
Yeah. So basically, they're trying to trap these angels in a human vessel. And creation, which kind of Ishtar stuff. They're all like that. But they don't ever really talk about the how. This is the how. Is it the low-tech ways to actually have intercourse, right? But to do it in such a way that they're hoping to capture the energy that they're coming. So when you look into Crowley, we're talking about those demons, because I know it sounds really crazy, but if you go back to people like Crowley, for instance, he even wrote a book called Moonshine, right? And so you'll probably find it on this page. But Moonchild is exactly just that. When you look into the stuff about Jack Parsons and folks of that nature, they were engaging in what they call sex magic, in which case they were trying to conceive these starred children, what they called children. And what was very strange and horrible about this, oftentimes they would actually abuse the woman as well to form like some type of trauma, and I guess they were trying to like impart that energy also to the fetus somehow, like really deep trauma or something, so they use her and stuff. It's horrible. And so it's not quite the same as you'll find in like the Anunnaki setting. Like they didn't talk about abusing people like that, and that was more king queen stuff. But anyway, in this particular case, they see themselves as stars, right? And so, oh my,
I've been
I've been looking for the significance of this.
And I've noticed
These folks
really don't like to talk to you.
They will not answer questions.
I think that
whatever spirit
that they are
familiar with
instructs them not to talk. Which, if you ever notice them doing the
Yes.
symbol, I think whatever spirit is inside of them doesn't want us to know.
I think that's called the sign of Harpocrates, where they cover their mouth or they do the shush.
It is. And the thing is, there's a lot of validity to it because, again, nothing's theirs. It's just perverted typically. But it's not uncommon looking into these traditions that it's often secret or is discouraged to be open about things. And even Jesus himself taught in parables for don't cast pearls. So in other words, power is power, and you can dispense it, like give people like the straight dope, as it were, and tell them how it is. Well, you could actually kind of responsible for that person for a period of time because you will red pill them, right? They kind of like lose. They might have what they call a black pill experience, and then you put them in a dark place, and they're losing all hope in humanity and this and that. So we had this conversation last time. I don't think it got recorded, but we can kind of talk about the red pill, blue pill, purple pill experience if you want, if you don't mind.
I do want to. Before we do, I just wanted to read one small paragraph in the book, The Hidden Dangers of the Rainbow, where Benjamin Krim had talked about his false Christ coming that intended to inaugurate both a new world government and a new world religion. This religion would feature mass planetary initiations. Initiation would in fact be heart and core of the New World religion. They were going to change times and laws. Traditional Jewish and Christian holidays would be replaced with pagan festivals such as the Wesak festival, could be saying that wrong, don't care, and the Festival of the Christ, to be celebrated at full moons, of course. So just to speak more on the planetary initiation, the star, and the full moons and the moon child. But
and what people having sex
right.
Full moons. So they can incarnate the new race. And this goes back to, now you'll find this in Edgar Casey, who was known for his dreaming predictions, and he talked about he's got a reading of the Sphinx from 1932. So if you go and find that one, it talks about how the spirits from New Atlantis, Lemuria, so on and so forth, are going to be returning at the end of the age, and so this indigo children, rainbow warrior stuff that you always hear about. Don't think that it's BS. It's probably real. You know. But that's not to say that I don't know, and I got a really weird. I can't help but wonder.
Yeah, I'm gonna mute him.
But sometimes I can't help but wonder if that was also part of God's plan too. Is salvation extended to some of these folks because they're incarnated. They're not. They're kind of just part of this. They didn't ask to be here or whatever. So maybe that's some way of extending salvation to some of the fallen, or I don't know, a possible theory come across, because it would be interesting if God's plan were to be, because he said you had to be born of woman. Right. So even if these angels were in heaven, the ones that sinned were those who came from heaven and didn't give up physical bodies. They came here with all the knowledge. They came here with their physical bodies, and then they took women as wives and started raising in their own image. Right. And so that was their sin. So that's why it says it shall be as it was in the days of Noah. That's what was going on at that time, right? They set up their own kingdoms on earth. So again, the stone that falls from heaven destroy that tower in Nebuchadnezzar's dream from Daniel. Again, we're talking about that same book, it's talking about the spiritual kingdoms, right? Because while he's interpreting these dreams, Prince of Persia is actively working against him to keep him from interpreting the same dreams I'm talking about right now. So it stands to reason that we should remember that each iteration of the gold, the silver, that's the Antichrist kingdom. Every time it appears and manifests, it's all just trying to establish that one world government, that one world religion, and so it keeps appearing and appearing and appearing. Vision. It appears with the toes, the 10 toes mixed with the clay. What were man and woman? Well, man was made from clay, woman from the rib, right? But it doesn't mix with the iron. So where with iron, what kind of an association is iron is associated Aryan, right? Again, we see that common denominator popping up again, where the Aryan epoch is part of the sixth subrace. Again, opening of right. And so part of this is I think that the parable of the wheat and the tares, right? So it says, Master, the enemy is coming soon. Tares among our wheat. What do we do? He's all panicked, freaking out, right? And the master just says, hey, you know what? You need to chill out, man. We're gonna just gather the wheat, and we're gonna burn the tares. All right. And it was that simple. And if you're a farmer, or if you're from a farming community, you just cycles take place. This is why everything is in cycles. Because there is the fullness of time, and we even see with the law of first fruits, for instance. It's understood that not every cycle is the same, and that some cycles build upon others, right? And that's what fruit is really all about. And so when we see the comparisons of us as trees bearing fruit of the Spirit, right? When we have the Holy Spirit in us, and we're spending time being that Spirit, and we're producing fruit, and feeding that fruit back down to the base of that tree, right? That is also us. We become like the tree. We eat of that tree. We become like God. We drink from Jesus. Become like Him. It's the Word. It's divine. It's divine. Oh, that was a good pun. So anyway. So when you think about it, the parable of the vineyard, the parable of the fig, these are all used as horticultural, agricultural parables, because they don't reveal openly the secrets. So if you understood it, if he just told you, and you didn't understand, you'd have all this information in your head, right? But you might misuse it. Or maybe if you somehow got turned away, you're not turned away from the Word of God or the truth. You're turned away from a parable that you didn't understand. So I think that's why we should follow the example given to us to tell the parables, like the wheat and the tares. Tell the parable of the fig. Talk about the parable, so that we can become the trees and God's grove. Right? So I think that's why it's really important to think about how we teach people, and so think about that as a blue pill.
Hold on. Hey, new person, I gotta mute you because we're recording a video. So no offense, but you can come in any other time, but right now we're recording. Okay.
So I was just saying, like when you do, attempt to red pill somebody and share this information, it's worthwhile to consider like how that might affect their perception of reality. Is this person really prepared to handle this? If it's like a family member or something, somebody you see often, you can kind of do that without worrying too much. But when we just like meet people on the internet and stuff all the time, it might be good to think about like, well, should I include the Bible first? Because
you should use
the Bible's words more in your own. And that's where I want to do that more.
But it's
sometimes difficult to discuss these things strictly from Scripture.
But it's getting easier.
But it's getting easier and easier
as the fullness of time
approaches.
And so that's what's really great. Prophecies is that if you can learn, for instance, it says Jesus learn the parable of the fish. In Matthew 24:30. So that if you just learn that parable and how it relates to other books in the gospel, like Mark, and even in some cases like the Q gospel, of Thomas. It's very similar in regard to some of the other gospels. Then you can start to see, which by the way, that would be a good time to mention Star Trek, which I sent you a link about. You can include that in the finished.
Yes. Well, I will. Yeah, I need to play that. And gosh, we could talk about so much on the other side. I've only got 15 more minutes to record until I need to go do something. So would you rather talk about the Q Star Trek or the red pill, blue pill? Because both are really important.
I'll just talk about the red pill, blue pill, because that's more important. The Q thing can wait, because I got a lot more I can talk about with that to make it more relevant, packaged way. So to finish, blue pill. In a way, you kind of think of this as tree of life versus tree of knowledge, right? Blue pill is the world that was intended for us to live in. If you think about it, it's the idiot way, right? We were created, yes, to name all the animals, categorize them, be king of the kingdoms, right? And to know the secret beings of all the animals. We had a lot of power in that regard, yes. But we did fall, and that's when things started to change because we ate of the tree of knowledge. So I think in a way God had his plan of, we had all this power, eternal life, power of the voice, things like this, but we didn't understand how or anything. We were just ignorant. We didn't know anything. We didn't have to. And I think that the intention was that through self-experience and self-discovery, we were intended to discover things about ourselves, to reveal these missions to ourselves and the world around us. Each of those is to be considered a fruit from the tree of life, if you will. Sin. That's the tree of knowledge. We became aware of the fact that we could actually, even though we weren't going to at that time. That's when we then. So you notice. Lifespans then were through and so it might have taken somebody 1,000 years to learn as much as somebody can learn today in a short lifetime, 75 knowledge, because knowledge hasn't. Daniel talks about. So when you consider things like that and how prophecy talks about the fullness of time, the cycles that build. Even though sin had entered and destroyed, it also created this set of cycles. Because the sins of the fall, it all comes back to a point of origin. So the DNA itself rapidly unraveling like that is what sin's done. Think of. But anyway, I want to get back to the point of the red pill versus blue pill. So in a way, you can consider the blue pill to be like the way it should be. You should be ignorant. You should be ignorant. Blind faith of a child. Right? It's when people become wise adults, right? Start to lose their faith. And so they really are starting to eat from the tree of knowledge rather than the tree which feeds on faith. And so one thing we see with knowledge, tree of knowledge, usually you don't know if the fruit is good or bad, right? Until you've already eaten it. And the problem with that is that when we share something from the tree of knowledge, we also don't know what that person's going to do with that. So it's sometimes you're So when we share in parables, it's like we're blue pilling. But at the same time, we're giving them a red pill. Also, but soften it with the blue pill. So if you speak to them in a parable, it's like, well, you didn't alter the reality too much unless they choose to understand what you're telling them. And then they red pill themselves. You see what I'm So we lead with the blue, by telling them a parable, get them into question things. What flavor is this? You know? And in a way, when you kind of merge the red pill and the blue pill, it becomes the purple. And that's when you can't just be red pill all the time. You're going to isolate yourself, become the hermit. You can't connect with anybody anymore. Jesus told us to be fishers of men. When those matrix people red pill, so to speak, red pill one another, did they never return to the matrix? No, quite the contrary. In fact, they return to the matrix frequently. And that's the thing. You got to be able to interpret your red pill. You got to be able to give that to them. If you go all the way, now a lot of times we lead people into a depressed state, black pill experience. So I think it's very important to do this because while learning how to do this, you also increase your because instead of just red pilling people, you're actually then witnessing. Then you're telling people about the gospel. Even in these parables, gospel. It is, to get people to realize you are the temple of the Holy Spirit. The kingdom of God's already here. It's already spread out because you are it. That's the thing. People only understood. Even in this time now where you can't go to church, that was still people can understand now. We're going to start seeing spirit. I think that might be one of the big reasons that they don't want us to go, because I think they're aware. I mean, as you were talking about, these people have kept knowledge from us. They're aware of the fact that the astral body stuff. Revelation talks about that. In the twinkling of an eye. What does it say? Are you not given a new body? Does it not say that? And that those with will not be given that. The celestial raiment. Their wedding garment, as it were. So again, another parable I find very useful to emphasize this is the parable of the wise and foolish virgins. Those who sent to the world and those who did not. We got the parable of the fig to talk about how Israel started 70 years ago, and today, 18, I think. We had this. It measures a generation in 70 years. And it says, if by strength it will be 8. Meaning I personally think that we're in this final decade. And that if you study the parable of the vineyard, the Lord returns frequently to the vineyard. And it says, and he doesn't know that the master, the servant in the vineyard is actually secretly gathering the fruit and replenishing the roots, right? That's the first fruit. He doesn't know that he's doing that. Okay. So he keeps coming back saying, hey, I'm going to cut this tree down. It's not yielding any fruit. And so what we're seeing right now is that kind of situation where generations at any point in time now this can happen, and it's only through the petitioning of prayer. It's only through give us another day to save another soul. Give us another day to preach the gospel. Because it says until it's taught to the four corners of the earth. But even then, maybe he's waiting for the last prayer to go up. When the last Christian is martyred, we don't know what his threshold when he's like, all right, enough is enough. And it says, for the sake of the elect, lest there be no flesh left. So we know that he's not waiting until everybody's walked out. And that's where we start seeing the remnant become important. So again, even though this one's not, you can go to Isaiah 11, 13, where it shows that
God gathers his remnant
from each of the 12
tribes.
And that fruit is gathered.
That wheat is gathered. And then you see verse 13, chapter 13 rather.
After chapter
12, it's very short. It says, salvation is Jehovah,
which is
Jesus' name. The meaning of his name is the salvation.
And
in chapter 13 comes the destruction of Babel.
And that's also in
tandem with Revelation 8,
which
it says security, and then sudden destruction, safety.
Sorry, I got a little bit preachy there,
but I'm telling you stuff.
Anyway.
Now, it's good. It's very good to include scripture in this conversation, and so I appreciate that. And one confusion I've seen when I've tried to tell people that really the blue pill was probably the garden. What they do in movies is they turn everything upside down, and there's multiple movies, especially like Superman and stuff, where they want to make God look bad. And I'm not going to get into too much in particular to Superman, but that was just an example that I saw in a recent video myself. But where God, the God that created the earth and everything, is the one imprisoning us, and Lucifer is the good guy. So in some ways, I felt like Morpheus could be considered Lucifer. And I understand why people don't understand this. Maybe, for instance, someone said, well, I don't look at it that way, because in the movie, it pulls them from this disgusting existence where they're actually being digested and fed back into the system. It's really quite gross. But that's not really how it is, because they want you to think that that's the kind of place that God would put you, is the prison, and you're waking up to the freedom, even though it's not fun, and your world turns upside down. And so what I would say about the movie is it's just another example of the upside down idea that the red pill is good, and it takes you out of this stupid sheeple state. And now it is kind of like that now, because we are here, and if we want to get back to the truth of the Lord, we become asleep. So you can call it the red pill, I don't care. But what we're trying to make a point of is what you said, is that really the blue pill was when we didn't have this knowledge. And now we have to be careful with the red pills, because, like you said, it takes us down a dark hole we can't come out of, even for our own selves. So if we don't have a firm foundation in the blue pill, and like you said, we can start mixing it up and it becomes the purple, then, and you, like you said, Jesus, his royal color is purple, then we can handle it. We can handle this dark and difficult information, and go forward to, like you said, try to teach other people and teach them well, where we're teaching them with scripture and kind of blue pilling them, as it were. It's kind of bringing them back to the natural state of that faith and understanding, and that's why it's so hard for them, because we are in the flesh.
Yeah, and so the gospel, the Q gospel, as it were, that we can cover in more detail the next time. I can kind of use this to kind of explain how when it talks about the two become one, it talks about, so think about, what does that mean? Some the alchemists, hermeticists, magician types, they're going to say mixing your male and female, so it sounds outwardly very satanic at first. But when you think, I think what they're really talking about is the brain, because when it talks about the mark of the beast, everybody's taken in their right hand, right? And so that's your left brain controls your right hand. And so when you look into the MK Ultra stuff and mind control and things like that, how they're actually controlling people's mind, quite literally. They're getting you to only use half.
Yeah, they're splitting it. They're splitting your mind.
So when you unify both hemispheres, it can't control you. And so whenever you're reading the Gospel of Thomas and you're reading this, and you're like, to become one, then you can start into the nations, be thou removed. What? He's really telling us is that when you're fully activated as what was intended. However, the Holy Spirit, I think the Holy Spirit does allow us to do that. And
we gain a authority, right? And I think that that's something that can happen naturally. What they're doing is they're coming in there and hijacking.
Exactly. Yep. Calling it like the third eye opened, and they're trying to get the kundalini up your spine and all that stuff to do it.
You've just been red pilled by Q.
Right.
You owe us
and so
it's really risky. So a way to really help the Q folks is to show them Q gospel, because then it literally helps them understand, like, you owe it to Jesus. He's teaching you how to break the mental bondage, how to not be a slave. That's what salvation is all about. Is free,
Right.
Free from this.
Amen.
You
mentioned something I want to.
I did want to mention this.
I did want to mention this in case I forgot.
So you mentioned
something about how they cast God in a negative light and try to assault Lucifer by saying, "Oh, he's the one that gives the red pill, Prometheus fire, yada." Well,
I found a very interesting
thing
here is
that this
human resonance
injection research that this guy's doing.
I don't know who this guy is.
He does pretty awesome.
I think he's a Christian.
Because he kind of talks like it, but you can tell that he holds back a little, because this channel, I think, is actually geared toward stuff like this.
But anyway, I think
he showed this knowing, encouraging you to look at it through a certain lens.
Anyway, he picked this
date right here.
We're going to be passing by the sun on this date when these solar flares. And this is called the WSA Enlil. Now, what's very interesting here is that when folks, if you do some research in the Sumerian Anunnaki stuff, you'll find that a lot of times there's parallels drawn between these two. Well, they call them Enlil and Enki. Enki is what you would call this Prometheus Lucifer character that give man knowledge. He's trickster. There's a lot of interesting tales about him, but in the basically a Lucifer character. This character here normally associated the Most High, and his lineage. So I don't want to say he's one or the other. I'm just saying he's normally associated Yahweh, Yeshua, or something like that. Like he's the son. This is the son of the Most High. And so he would tasked with destroying the earth. But what you'll find, since we were talking about how the enemy, or he helped out mankind, or whatever. When you read the Anunnaki stuff, the Sumerian myths say that this order was given to allow the flood to destroy the earth and all of mankind because of the abominations, right? Well, then Enki goes. This character, a lot of folks equate to Noah, and he builds the ark. So that's what the story says there. Now, I don't necessarily believe that, but it's still interesting to read, just for the comparison. And then the fact that they're naming this thing right here, because the destruction that came then was floodwaters, right? And he was like, hey, the Most High said that this is going down, folks. You're not getting right? You weren't supposed to get a warning. You weren't supposed to get a warning then, right? Right? Apparently, he did get a warning after that. Here's an interesting thing about the name in the Old Testament of God does change, and that's the severity versus. There was the severity, and then after salvation, the Son of God has salvation. That was the mercy, and even the mercy seat prior to that. So salvation was given through mercy and grace. And so I kind of think it's interesting because we've been given the warning this time, right? And so we should heed the warning that we were given, and it's in fire this time. So Doc mentioned how the differences in fire and water, right? So the Son is a creation of the Father. Not saying that this is the Son of God. I just think that sometimes God uses those words on purpose, because He wants us to pay attention.
He wants us to pay attention to
And
things.
so if you have the eyes,
And so if you have the eyes to see, you're like, oh,
this might be a
good
day
to not have the mark of the beast.
Yeah.
So there, I think we're going to see more days like
where the
this,
sun's probably
where the sun's probably going to be spewing crap at the earth. And if you think about it,
just knowing what this
does to the earth, this message with telecommunications, this message with cell phones.
Imagine what it's going to do.
Imagine what it's going to do if your body's full of nanobots and
the mark of the beast chips.
The mark of the beast chips.
It talks about in Revelation about
those having the mark will have grievous wounds appearing.
Sores.
Sores. And then this will be tracking them down, giving them stings and such. Well, how do you think they're going to find it? You have the RFID emanating out of you.
So anyway, I didn't want to get long-winded about that, but I just wanted to mention that, I know this is somewhat fringe, but also strange that they're using.
And it also,
because the on and off.
I was going to say, it also says that they'll wish for death and death will flee from them. And I've said that will also be part of the mark is immortality, possibly.
Well, yeah, exactly. Because they promised that, you shall not die. So Satan's promises are always the same. It's eternal life, eternal knowledge, and what was the other?
Being as God.
Well, riches.
He tempted Christ with you can have all these kingdoms.
Right.
So it's fame, it's riches, it's knowledge.
All he had to say was get thee hence.
Because the fact is, our kingdom's not of this earth, so don't be tempted by anything from this earth. Right? First of all, don't be tempted by fame, because your only boast is that you know the Most High, right? That's something that Satan can say. Get thee hence, Satan. Depart for I never knew you. That's what he'll say to them. So you can boast in saying, I know God, I know. And that's what you think boast anything. And as far as the knowledge is concerned, well, if you have the Holy Spirit, it teaches you what you need to know. You can be in it and still be wise because you have the Holy Spirit. That's the whole point. So the people want to exalt themselves, and that's what leads them down these paths. These branches on the tree of knowledge terminate into fruitless branches, and the fruitless branches are cast into the fire. It's just how it is.